Welcome on in, everybody. It is the latest edition here on the Betting Weekly Dojo with me, your host, Nigel Seeley, and my co-host is professional gambler Neil Channing. Good morning to you, Neil. Good afternoon, actually. How are you, mate?
Hi, Nigel. Yeah, I'm good. This week I stayed up all night watching NFL games, which has totally messed my body clock up. But that's good because we've got the Melbourne Cup, big horse race in Australia overnight tonight, and then of course, once every 4 years, we get to watch America go crazy for a few nights. So I'm going to be staying up all funny hours and. I think I'm on Eastern time at the moment.
Well, I don't even know what time I'm on sometimes when I work in America. I work on different time scales, different places in the world. It's absolutely incredible how it changes your thought process. I don't know how you do it. I mean, I've known you for a long time. You never sleep. You wake up in the middle of the night. You're trading stuff through the night. It's incredible that you still be able to do it over like 35 years. But before we go on, this is going to be a very, very special US election special of the dojo here. Obviously, Neil was a huge political betting man. He's probably one of the most probably one of the most famous political betting guys over here across in the UK. You know, he's got a podcast, very well known podcast, which you can name drop in a second, Neil. And he's also very, very active on his political betting. So it's very, very important. It's a big time of the year for Neil. But before we go on to, let's go on to the most important thing of the week. Strictly Come Dancing, Neil. Bad week again for you, man. That's a bad week. You're in a bad week.
Well, I don't know. I mean, ultimately, there's two ways of looking at this Strictly Come Dancing. Are people going to vote according to who's the best dancer, or are people going to vote, for other reasons? And one of the reasons I think Chris McCausland is just a good thing to win it is that I don't think the people that are voting really care whether he's the best dancer or not. You don't have to be the best dancer to win Strictly Come Dancing. You just have to get the most votes from the public, which means being most popular. And he's definitely very popular. He's definitely at the moment not the best dancer, and I guess it's unlikely that he's going to become the best dancer over the course of the series. But I don't really think that matters. This woman Sarah Hadland, who I think
Big
was,
move.
yeah, she was like always, looking like someone that was a dancer coming into it, and she's clearly better at dancing, and I think she was about a 6-1 chance about 2 weeks ago, and now she's into around about plus 250. So she's shortened up quite a lot, and it does just look like a 2-horse race, really. There's a couple of other people that are still in it who are pretty terrible, who will probably get knocked out over the next couple of weeks, and I guess it'll just come down to whether the people voting think, well, this Chris McCausland is doing an amazing thing considering he's never seen any of the dances before. He lost his sight before he ever got interested in dancing. And he's managing to do it despite his, his obvious disability. Or whether they just think, well, she's clearly a better dancer. And I just think he's such a nice guy and, very popular. I'm not bothered. I mean, he's minus $1.50 this morning. And I have actually had a bit more on. So there you go.
Oh, don't be a moron, put more on. That is the big vote over here in the UK. The public vote is out for the glitter ball, Christmas time. Who's going to have the glitter ball? Really, that is a very, very important thing over here in the UK. But thing going on stateside now is the election. It's the American election. Who's going to become one of the most powerful people in the world? Will it be Kamala Harris or will it be Donald Trump for his second term as the American president? Now, before we go into some strategies, and you want to talk about a lot about this stuff. Before we go on to about it, Neil lives and breathes politics. Anyone who follows him on X will know that he's always tweeting about politics. Me, my politics, nothing. I don't want to know anything about politics. I was told very, very carefully once by the first job I ever had in America. Guy said to me, never engage with anyone less than 1,000 followers on Twitter, and never, ever, ever tweet anything about American politics. And here I am, 8 years later, hosting a podcast on the American election. It's I mean, it's a strange thing because I really, even in the UK, I have my beliefs, I have my thought, I keep them to myself, and I don't have any sort of political agenda or anything about politics. I don't even know where to start from a betting perspective on politics. You're at the forefront of it. You see this stuff coming through, and you see the emergence of this. Now, over here in the UK, the last presidential election we had here, it was, I think it was $500 million bet on one particular website alone. $500 million. That isn't the whole industry. But prior to that, we had the first the election in I think it was 2016. I think it was the 2016 election, a $257 million bet. And judging by the way this market is going to go, we're going to beat records here. This will be the most bet event ever in the history of betting in the United Kingdom and across the world. And with the influx of sports betting in America, it's staggering that nobody in America, or no bookmaker, our sponsors Bet Rivers and other bookmakers across America, are not allowed to bet on this. And this is yet the biggest betting event in the whole world. That to me absolutely blows my mind.
It does seem crazy, doesn't it? And, you know, when you talk about the biggest exchange over here taking all that money, I mean, that's really because it's a worldwide thing. You know, if you look at the sort of top 20 betting events in the history of that exchange, none of them are soccer, because soccer is, you know, obviously it's big in Asia, it's getting bigger in North America, but generally the Premier League is a UK betting phenomenon, and to an extent an Asian thing. But apart from these big elections, the top 20 sporting events that they've recorded most bets on are cricket, because that's Dubai and the subcontinent and Australia and South Africa and all these distant markets. So they can only get a big betting event when it's a proper worldwide event. And what could be more worldwide than the American election? You know, every country you're in, people are interested in it, apart from you, Nigel, obviously. I find, I don't know, you must get this, though, that this is a thing that happens to me. And I think it happens to all people that are involved in betting, work in betting, professional gamblers, whatever. Every year in the UK, we have this race, the Grand National. It's a jumps race, and it's kind of, you know, a big deal in the UK. Even people that are not really interested in horse racing follow the Grand National. They have a little gamble on it. I guess in America, the only race that would be comparable is the Kentucky Derby. The same kind of thing. People who don't normally follow horse racing interested in the Kentucky Derby, and definitely in Australia, it would be the Melbourne Cup. They describe that as the race that stops the nation. And for people that work in the industry, that is the week of the year when you hear from people that you never, ever hear from, and they text you and they say, who's going to win the Grand National? You must get that, Nigel. It drives me absolutely insane.
Wimbledon is my one. Who's going to win Wimbledon? Wimbledon.
But it's people that
That's
you
what
think,
I
I haven't spoken to that guy for 2 years, and he texted me a year ago to ask me that question. He never spoke to me since. So I hate that. I absolutely hate that. Anyway, when the American election comes up, every 4 years, I suddenly hear from a bunch of people that I never hear from, and they say, who's going to win? You know, are you with Trump or are you with Harris? I mean, I kind of sometimes think with this one, it's almost 50-50. Trump is the favorite. It's kind of 57-43 now in percentage terms. But I kind of feel like I should just text half of them one word answer Trump and the other half a one word answer Harris, and weed 50% of them out for 4 years' time. They won't bother contacting me. Maybe now we do this podcast, I could just send them a link to the podcast. I won't need to reply to all their messages.
I think that's what you need to do. Now, I'm sorry for texting you, but I'm sorry for texting you last week asking the same question. But I'm asking the same question: who wins?
Well, I actually think that the question, I don't like to assort your, you know, I'm sure you've thought long and hard about the question there, who wins. But I think it actually shows a fundamental misunderstanding of how professional betting works, and how much it's evolved really as a thing. I mean, first of all, the election doesn't really start on Tuesday. People that sort of say, oh, it's the election this week, They're slightly misunderstanding how elections work. This one started years ago. They've been betting on this one for 3 years. And the prices update second by second. And actually, in some states, they've nearly finished voting. In a lot of places, 80% of the people have voted already. Obviously, we won't get the results until Tuesday night, Wednesday morning in the UK time. But basically, I think of this as one long in-running event. I'm looking at prices now, and they're changing by fractions of a percentage on a second-by-second basis. And at all times of the day, I'm looking at Twitter, I'm looking at the internet, and I'm seeing polling coming in, I'm seeing market moves, and I'm seeing events happening. Trump speaking, or Harris speaking, or somebody making a gaffe, or one of their supporters saying something controversial. So there are events happening, there's stuff happening within the market, and there's polling coming in. And I am looking at all times, assessing those three things and trying to weigh up whether they change the chance of Trump winning or Harris winning. But essentially, I don't really care who wins. Politically, I don't really agree with either of them on a lot of things. So I'm not really a biased person. And secondly, in terms of the betting, I'm not, I think a lot of people that are texting me saying, who do you fancy to win this election, assume that what professional gamblers are doing is having one massive bet either on Trump or on Harris, according to their strong belief, and then sitting back, sparking up a large cigar and putting their feet on the desk and waiting to see the result. I don't really know any political gamblers that are doing that. Most of the people that I speak to are either playing on ancillary markets, the side markets, or they're thinking of it in terms of a trading event, and they're going in and out. I mean, last night I was sat up watching the American football, at the NFL, and it got to about 4 a.m, which in UK times means that the late Sunday night football game's nearly finished. And I was just thinking about going to bed, and suddenly on the biggest exchange, and that exchange has been open now for 25 years. Somebody put a 4 million bet up trying to get matched on Trump. They were basically asking for roughly minus $1.50. I don't think I've ever seen as big a single bet in all the time I've been watching the exchange. I think that might be the biggest single bet I've ever seen placed. I'm pretty sure. Maybe I might be wrong there. There's been some cricket ones, obviously, at different times, and people taking really short odds. Sometimes they put up really big amounts, but £4 million as well. We're talking, so even more in dollars. These are huge bets being transacted. And suddenly I thought, well, I can't go to bed now. I've got to get involved. There's trading opportunities now. If someone's trying to bet 4 million now, in 2 hours' time, that's going to shift the price. And I did a bit of trading. I basically I front run the guy, thinking, well, he's not going to get matched. I'll go in front of him. I got matched, and then I was able to close out. I did actually sleep for a few hours, and I closed out. But that's the way that my betting is going. In terms of the way the race is and the way American politics works, for someone like you that doesn't really follow it, let me try and give you a kind of a brief explanation of how this thing works. So basically, for the last 10 years, America's been completely split. Roughly 51% of people in America are sort of leaning towards being Democrats, and 49% are roughly leaning towards being Republicans. That's a kind of rough way of talking about it over the last 10 years. And they have an electoral system whereby they have a race in each state, basically. So if you live in, I don't know, Arkansas or something, and that's a strong Republican state, well then they have a vote there, and although the nation might be 51-49, in Arkansas they might be more like 80-20 towards the Republicans. So Arkansas will go Republican. So, and I can't remember how many electoral college votes it gets in Arkansas, but what happens is you get. Let me remind myself. Arkansas. God, that's bad. 6. So you get 6 electoral college votes for that. So basically, there are 538 electoral college votes, and each state gets. Just think of them as points. Each state gets points depending on how big it is. Depending on the population. So, for a smallish state with a low population, like say, I don't know, North Dakota, they'll only get 3 electoral college votes. Now, the biggest state with the biggest population is California, and they get 54. So you can see that winning some states is more important than other states. And there are a lot of states that the Democrats stack up votes. So they always win California, but they win it by way too far from their point of view. They don't have an efficient use of their vote, which is why although Trump will probably not get 50% of the vote, he could easily win the election because he's going to win more electoral college votes because his votes are spread out more around the nation. And actually, the way it works out is that the election just comes down to certain what we would call swing states. So there are 7 swing states. 4 of them are more in the south, and we call them the Sun Belt, and that's Nevada, Arizona, North Carolina, and Georgia. And 3 of them are in the northeast, and we call them the Rust Belt, and that's Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. And essentially, basically, Kamala Harris will pretty much surely win the election if she wins the 3 Rust Belt states. And Donald Trump doesn't necessarily win the election if he wins the 4 Sun Belt states. But essentially, those are the 7 races. And if you look at the odds on those 7, Pennsylvania is kind of minus $1.10 Trump. Wisconsin's like minus 162 Harris. Michigan's like nearly minus 200 Harris. Nevada's kind of minus 130 Trump. North Carolina minus 164 Trump. Georgia minus 200 Trump, and Arizona minus 300 Trump. So he's going to win a lot of those states, but essentially it's just going to come down to Pennsylvania. If she wins Pennsylvania, she's probably 80% to win the presidency. If he wins Pennsylvania, he's like 95% to win the presidency. So I think it'll just come down to about 10,000 people in Pennsylvania who are currently undecided, who will make their mind up on the day, which really means it's quite random, and I can't really understand this idea that you would just say, well, I'm Trump or I'm Harris and lump a fortune on it, because the polling shows that it's pretty much 49-49, and all within the margin of error. And, if you run the race 1,000 times, they might win it, nearly 500 times each. I think that if you're betting on it, you just have to look at the current prices and say, on the information I'm given, is this a right price or is this a wrong price? So last night, and I'm not trumpeting myself here, it was an obvious thing to do. When I saw the 4 million, I was lucky enough to be awake while that was happening. And I looked at it and said, well, what is that going to do to the market in the next 2 hours? It's sure to mean that Trump shortens. I bet Trump, and then I closed out a few hours later. And I'm just going to, I've had thousands of bets on this election so far, and I'm going to have thousands more. And that's basically what I'm going to be doing. And I think that almost all the pros that I've spoken to that are playing in this election, that's kind of what they're doing. They've opened positions at different times. They've closed them at other times, and I've made mistakes. I mean, I bet Harris at around about plus 200 when she became the candidate. And I thought she was going to shorten. I didn't get out quickly enough. She got as short as minus $1.20, and at that stage there was a good time to get out, and it was you had a few days to do something. I hummed and hawed. I wasn't sure what to do, and I messed up really. but I did get out at kind of maybe plus 122 or something like that. I laid her back at that. I bet him at minus 124, something I can't remember, around about those levels. And then I really got into betting Trump, and I was with Trump for about 2 weeks, and I was pressing and pressing, and he got to almost to minus 200, and I'd said to myself, if he gets to minus 200, that's when I'm going to get out. And he didn't quite make it there. He got to minus 195, and I did get out of some of it, but I slightly messed up again. But you can't. It's very hard to totally top and tail the market, and I'm staring at the screen 24/7, trying to find the best time to do it. But I do think during the night it'll be amazing. I think there's going to be so many movements, and we'll just come back to the fundamentals of how to be a professional punter and how you get your edges. And we've spoken about these things. I saw somebody actually questioned it in the YouTube comments last week. I think I've mentioned recency bias a few times last week, and somebody said, what's he talking about when he talks about recency bias? And I think on the night, recency bias is going to be our friend as usual, because people on TV are going to say, well, that's huge for Trump, and the market's going to overreact. Or they're going to say, well, this is just coming for Harris, and this is absolutely huge for Harris, and the market's going to overreact. And I'm just going to try and... So recency bias is where there's an inherent bias in the market against information that's very recently come in, against information that we already knew. So people tend to remember the information that they've just heard, and they get very excited about it, and it filters through to the market in an over-exaggerated way, whereas information that we had 20 minutes ago or a year ago or 6 months ago tends to get forgotten about, and the value of that information decays in the market. So I'm going to be looking on the night to oppose the recent information. I mean, if we can look back at the last election, Trump had told his supporters to vote in person. He didn't trust the idea of voting early and doing electronic voting and mail-in voting. He said it was all crooked. So a lot of his voters voted in person. And when the results came out, the in-person votes were counted first. And that meant that it looked like Trump was doing super well in a lot of states. And he traded at one point minus 300 to win the election. And if people had really thought about the way the votes were going to be counted and the order they were going to be voted in, they would have realized that once they start counting up the other kinds of votes, then Harris is going to come back into it. Oh, sorry, Biden in that election is going to come back into it. So again, there, recency bias really came into it. And I think that's where I'm going to be looking on the night. Stuff like that, trying to make sure that I don't fall victim to the recency bias trap.
Yeah, I mean, this is fascinating stuff to me, actually, Neil, because I've never looked at it. But day trading, getting in and out of markets is definitely the way to go here. No one really knows the way this is going to go. It's a toying cost, it really is. And you're just getting in markets and out of markets. Do you think, first of all, I'm going to ask you a question, like, are you in a win-win position heading into the day of the election? Are you in, there is not one that's better than you, one that are you just nicking markets and just trading in a good position?
Well, it's funny because at different times I've been as green as a bird's eye pea in a Celtic top on a rainy day in North Wales. I'm trying to think of things that are green. I can't think of any other green things.
Incredible Hulk. The Incredible Hulk's green. Who else is green?
The Incredible Hulk.
Orville.
Yes.
Orville.
I've been pretty green on both candidates at different times. But then I've switched, and there was, when she got declared the candidate, I went very, very red Trump and very, very green Harris, much more than I intended to stay. Just an amount that I was comfortable with, but bigger than I'd really anticipated sticking with. Just to run with it for a while. And then when I switched a couple of weeks ago and went with Trump, I went massively red Harris and massively green Trump. When we're talking about red and green, we're talking about, who I'm long or short of, who I'm with and who I'm against. So green
Profit
is
and loss.
good,
The
and red
green
is
relates
bad.
profitable, and red is bad.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, I'm slightly green Trump and slightly red Harris, but I'm feeling like on the night I want to go into it green on both because I want to free up money. So that I've got enough to play in running and to have strong opinions in running. I don't want to be in a situation where I've got all my money tied up before I come in. And I don't really want to have a strong view going in. I don't have a huge opinion on who's going to win it. If you ask me right now, I think, Pennsylvania is basically minus 110 Trump, plus 110 Harris. And it's very likely whoever wins Pennsylvania will win the election.
But isn't
I
that
guess
the
if you're
better
going to
play?
have a
Betting Trump at minus
well, yeah,
110 to win
I think
Pennsylvania?
if you're looking for a bet, just to have a bet on who wins it, you're better off if you fancy Trump, who's currently close to minus $1.50. You're better off just betting him to win Pennsylvania. You'll certainly get minus 120. If you shop around, you might get minus 110 or maybe minus 115. And that's definitely a better way to bet Trump, I think, than to bet him just to win the thing. The other thing that's quite interesting is the market. Now, when I talk about, there are three things that can change this election. The stuff that the candidates and their mates do. I don't think that can change it that much now. I mean, I think Trump's made a slight mistake that I basically think he should have spent the last week just talking about the economy and nothing else. And he gets distracted and goes on and talks about other things, which is probably an error. But I don't think any of that really changes the election. Now, most people have made their mind up. There are people that haven't made their mind up, but I don't think anything that the candidates do or say in the next 24 hours is going to really make that much difference unless, I don't know, unless he starts to appear a bit more like Biden in terms of his, his brain going or anything like that. So I don't think that's going to be a huge factor that changes the market. I think polling can change the market. There was a big poll in Iowa came in. Now, Iowa is not a swing state. It's a safe Republican state. But a poll came in from a very respected polling company that actually said that Harris was going to win Iowa. Now, Iowa was minus 800, the Republicans. And this poll came in, and now it's gone minus 300. Now, I really don't think that the Democrats are going to win Iowa. But the point was that if she's doing well in Iowa, and it was said to be on reproductive rights, there's the whole issue of he's talking about making abortion illegal in the whole of America. And apparently this was particularly going to be stringent in Iowa. And a lot of women were kind of, there's a feeling that a lot of women are sort of telling their husband they're voting for Trump and secretly voting for Harris. And the Democrats have made a couple of adverts around that saying, well, he'll never know. You can just lie to him and do what you like in the privacy of the box and smile to him and wink at the other lady in the box next door. And you can both know that you're secretly voting for Harris. That was quite a funny advert. I thought it was quite near the knuckle. But I think people thought that if she's doing that well in Iowa, well, then she's going to win the other swing states. And that really threw the market, and the market went absolutely haywire for a couple of days. That was really interesting. And I think things like that can definitely still change the market. But the other thing that really has a massive influence on the market is this huge crypto exchange that started up in the last year. Now, I should probably know this, but I don't even really know where they're based. I guess they can't be in America. They must be offshore. But they are matching absolutely phenomenal amounts of money on the election. Last time I looked, 223,978,000 matched on Trump. Now that is just incredible amounts of money. And the way that exchange works is you can see which players have done what. You can log into somebody's profile and see how many bets they've had and what their position is worth now. And there's this kind of super user on there who plays bigger than anyone else. And he keeps going on and sort of dumping another 30 million on Trump every morning. And people are like, well, who the hell's got that kind of money? He's been doing it for a month now. And the suggestion has been that it's probably Elon Musk. So I have no idea whether that's true or not. The Wall Street Journal ran a story and said they'd found the guy, and it wasn't Elon Musk, and they did an interview with him and asked him what he was up to, and he said he just thought Trump was going to win. But then a bunch of other accounts opened up, and they seemed to be mirroring the play of this guy, and he started to bet less, and these other accounts started betting more, and so there was a suggestion that whoever it was trying to hide the fact that it was them. And then people started looking at what bets that this account was doing and looking at Elon Musk tweets and trying to work out whether it was doing bets at the same time as he was doing tweets. Anyway, whether it's him or not, nobody really cares. But what actually happened was, there'd be big arbitrage opportunities. We talked last week about arbitrage, huge arbitrage. Like there were situations where on the main betting exchange that's legal in the UK and has huge liquidity, the price would be something like, I don't know, minus 132 Trump. But on this crypto exchange, it would be minus 150. So you could play an arbitrage for pretty much unlimited amounts for hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And assuming they both, are still in business at the end of the election and happy to pay up,
that is the
you'd be
big
all
risk.
right. Of
That's
course,
the big risk of a crypto
well,
fund
that is
no
a
one knows
risk,
where
and
they
also
are.
the fact that the election, the result might take a long time to come through. There might be legal challenges to the result. They might be interpreted in different ways by different bookmakers. It is a bit of a minefield. But this crypto exchange has really started to drive the market. And of course, there's a suggestion that, first of all, people that play on crypto exchanges are more likely to be supporters of Trump, because people that like crypto tend to be a bit more sort of libertarian and a little bit out of, they don't believe in kind of the mainstream politics. So because they're kind of outsiders, I can sort of see that. There's also this idea that exchanges generally are a really good indicator of what's going to happen because of the wisdom of crowds. You know what I mean by the wisdom of crowds, Nigel?
Yeah. Just the amount of people are all following, the amount of people who if some certain amount of people are betting on one thing and certain amount of people are opposing it, you see the amount of people betting it, think, well, they have to be right.
Yeah, the group opinion is bound to be right because it's so many thousands of small people. It leads you to get to the correct result. That's the idea of the wisdom of crowds. But if you've got a situation where one guy is just, he's basically bet $1 billion, well, it's not really the wisdom of crowds now. It's just the wisdom of one guy. So, historically, we've always looked at exchange markets and said that they're a much better predictor of what's going to happen than other forms of gambling. I don't think it really works so much here because this crypto exchange is dominating the market so much, and it seems to be skewed towards Trump. So I don't know. That's a kind of an interesting thing. I don't know how that's going to play out. God knows. I don't know. Which is partly why I don't really want to have a strong view on the result, actually.
It's going to be a fascinating night, Neil. It really is. And I like to have a little camera on you for the evening, watching your moves and watching your activity, seeing your bets. I think that'd be a real good pay-per-view button. If you could press a button and follow Neil Channing's live election night on the BBC website or the CBN website or whatever, CNN, whatever, Fox News, press the little red button and watch Neil. Would be great. I think it'd be well good worth it. What kind of factors are you looking at when assessing the market, Neil? And how, when do you know it's wrong? During the night, you might see a price, you think it's wrong. You've said so many times on this podcast here that when you see a wrong price, you've got to go in for it. You've got to, that's it. That's the wrong price. I'm going to raise my stake. When do you finally hit those moments on the election nights?
Well, first of all, slightly on gut reaction. So if somebody's betting against recency bias, so if somebody on CNN, for example, just to pick a random channel, I'll probably have a few channels up, but I think the CNN coverage, although they're clearly a liberal biased, Democrat biased station, I think the presenters on there are quite good on the fact stuff when they talk about the counties and the importance of this county and how many votes it's got and whatever. If they make a bold statement that means that the market's going to skew, I'll tend to want to bet the status quo, because I think many more punters will be watching their coverage. And I think if the expert says, oh, this is brilliant for Harris in Michigan, well, then I think there'll be an overreaction, because, just the number of people watching it, and everyone will think, well, he's an expert, I've got to agree with him. So I'll tend to bet against that a little bit, I think. That'll be one thing I'll be doing. But that'll be on a kind of gut reaction level. How confident does he sound, and how much has the market moved? And generally, I think it will move too much in those situations. But the real thing I've done is I managed to get hold of this spreadsheet, which has got county by county in every state, how people voted in 2016, how they voted in 2020. So I can look at a small county and say, they had 1,800 voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, and 2,000 people voted for Donald Trump. And in 2020, 2,500 voted for Joe Biden, and 1,800 voted for Donald Trump. And I've done that. I've got that for every single county in every single state. So when I see the votes coming in, I can immediately compare in these small little areas, and I can say, oh, well, this is an area with a high percentage of black voters, or with a high percentage of Hispanic voters, or a place where, it was a ex-industrial area, or an area where, particular industries are important. And I can get an idea of what that will mean in a similar area in that state. So I'll be comparing those things all the time, and I think that will give me an edge. I probably also, the other thing is, of course, we've got markets in all of the swing states. So I'll probably focus on a couple of swing states. I think I'll be focusing a lot on Wisconsin and Minnesota, and Michigan, Wisconsin and Michigan, because they're swing states, they're interesting. And they could go either way. I've got a lot of detail on the breakdown of the voters there and which counties are important to look at. I'll look at Nevada a lot too, because I've spent a lot of my life in Nevada, and I know the people there, and I know how it works. I know the areas. I've been to a lot of the places, so I can sort of envisage it in my mind. And I'm definitely going to focus a bit on the side markets a bit more. I mean, I've had bets in all of those 7 swing states. I can't really recommend you one right now. I think the prices this morning are starting to knock into shape and look about right, and I'm not really getting too involved. My main bet that I've done on any of the swing states is Democrats to win Michigan. I think she can easily win there, even if she loses the election. There was a book in England the day before yesterday who made Wisconsin a pick'em, even though the Democrats were winning in all the polls there, and the exchanges were leaning towards the Democrats. So I had a good few bets. I had a bunch of bets on Wisconsin with various firms on the Democrats, and they're now, well, they're much closer to minus $1.50, minus $1.57 than they were a couple of days ago. Whether they're really value now, I don't know. I do think if you want Trump to win the election, or if you think Trump's going to win the election, you should back him to win Pennsylvania. I think you get a much better price, and I think if he wins Pennsylvania, he'll probably win the election. There are firms in the UK where you can bet to win the Rust Belt. You can bet, so you can bet the Democrats to win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, and Michigan, win the 3 Rust Belt states. Now, if you multiply up the chances on the markets of them winning those 3, it comes to about 7-2, about plus 350. But I'm going to tell you that I think they're a good bet at plus 175. There's a couple of bookmakers in the UK offering plus 175, the Democrats to win those 3. And of course, the reason why you have to take under the multiplied price is because it's very correlated. If she wins Pennsylvania, it's pretty much guaranteed she'll win Wisconsin and Michigan as well. So rather than back her at 11-10 plus 110 to win Pennsylvania, why not bet her at plus 175 to win all 3 of those? So that would be a good bet that I would recommend if you want to have one bet to give you an interest at that kind of price. If you want something slightly bigger, I don't mind the idea of Trump winning, and if Trump wins, if he wins all the ones that he's hot favorite in, and she wins Michigan and Wisconsin, but he wins Pennsylvania, then he's going to get to what is it? Well, depending on whether he wins Michigan and Wisconsin or just Michigan, he's either going to get to 288 or 298. So I bet him to win between, they have bands, and I bet him to win between 270 and 299. And you can take that bet now at nearly 3-1. I think it's about 11-4, 3-1, something like that. I think that's a really good bet. Trump to win 270 to 299 electoral college votes. So there's my two best bets. One is a Trump-leaning bet, 270 to 299 electoral college votes, which will win him the presidency, around about 11-4. And if you'd rather have a more Democrat one, well, you can bet her to win the 3 Rust Belt states at 7-4 plus 175 to win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. That gives you a bet on either side of it at a working man's price. I think that'll be all right for you, won't it, Nigel?
That'll do, mate. That'll do. I can tell by your body language that you're looking forward to this. The amount of bets you've had, your positions you've got, your positions, your opinions, and everything. It's going to be a huge trading night. May even go in for a couple of days as well. The trading here, it could be so close it could go on to probably Friday. Yeah, I mean, how do you prepare for a night like this? So what is it like a kid before Christmas? Or what was it like? Do you have to,
it's mental,
you know, what do you do?
I mean, my main problem now is knowing when to sleep. I mean, I think it will be around about midnight on Tuesday night that we start to get some of the results from Georgia coming in that will look a bit interesting, and maybe at midnight 30 we'll get some North Carolina in that will be a bit interesting. Probably nothing much will happen before then, but you know, the TV coverage will start to get really heavy by about 10 p.m. in the UK. So really, I should try and sleep all day on Tuesday. But I don't know. I'm too excited, Nigel. It's very hard. I think I'm going to get no sleep for about 3 days. And also, the other thing is that, you know, Trump's going to probably say that he's won, whatever happens. And the TV companies are going to be really afraid. They have this thing in America where the TV company declares the result, which is kind of odd. You know, they don't bother finishing counting up all the votes. They say, well, we've counted 80% of the votes, so we can say with X percentage certainty that means that this person's going to win. And the TV company says, well, that's good enough for us. We'll just declare that as the result. It's like over here sometimes when bookies pay out early on events. I just think, well, why don't they there's no benefit to calling it early. Why don't you just wait if it takes 3 days to count the votes? Well, it takes 3 days. You know, I don't really understand why it takes 3 days. It seems crazy to me. You know, in the most wealthy country in the world, they can't employ enough people to get on and count them quickly. But anyway, it's going to be hard. I don't think I'm going to get too much sleep. I think that's the answer.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get much sleep at all. I mean, 43 minutes we've had here on the Betting Weekly Dojo talking about the presidential election. And I haven't really got all time to break into all that stuff, Channing. I haven't got time to be trading markets. I'm trying to get in. All I want to know is going to become the 47th president of the United States of America on Saturday. At the weekend, who'll be the president of America on Saturday?
God knows. If I knew the answer to that, Nigel, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I'd be on my crypto exchange boshing away.
You probably are. You're on that as well. Listen, I'll be flicking through watching it. It's not something that really interests me, but I'm fascinated by the stuff that you said there. And
are you going to have one of those 2 bets that I said?
I'll have to rerun to remember what you said. To Trump to get certain amount of votes. What was it? Trump to
get between 270 and 299 at 11-4.
Better write this down. Yeah, that'll do.
Plus 275.
You'll have to tell me if I won or not, because I won't be watching it. You'll have to tell me in the morning whether I won or not, and anything like that. We had some questions, but I think we've run out of time for the questions. I like them next week. I don't know if it's a good bet or a bad bet, but listen, I know you know your politics better than anybody, so I respect that thing. We've got some questions. We'll have to put them on back till next week when we're back again on Monday on the Dojo. Neil, not only do you do the podcast here, you have a very, very, very popular political betting podcast as well, and I'm sure you've been doing a lot of content on there. Where can people find your podcast if you want to listen to more in-depth analysis between you and the team on the US election?
Well, that's very good of you to give me the chance to plug Bet the House. Sadly, my co-presenter on Bet the House is having the most manic week ever because he was in the States. He presents horse racing as well as talking to me about politics. His day job is presenting horse racing on TV. And he's been working for NBC on the Breeders' Cup. Now he's flying to Australia to do the Melbourne Cup. I actually don't think we're going to get time to record an episode just before the biggest political betting event in history, which is kind of a bit mad. But hopefully we'll get one straight away afterwards to reflect on the results and see how it changes the betting for future events.
Yeah, make sure you follow that on your the house. It's on all your major podcast providers, whichever one you use. Follow the house as well, Neil's podcast. Also here, subscribe to the Betting Weekly Studios on YouTube. A huge amount of subscribers. Thank you very much. What they got to do, Neil? I know we usually say this at the top of the show, but we're talking so much about politics. You got to press what they got to do.
They got to press subscribe, or as we like to call it, they should become a do joiner by joining us. Press subscribe and obviously press like. If you like this video, press like. Don't get upset in the comments about who's going to win the election. We don't need a load of politics rubbish being talked about on there. There's enough of that on every other YouTube video in the country.
Yeah, absolutely right. We're here purely independently, looking at an angles to bet, trying to make some profits, steer you some direction of the way the general election will go, and giving you some insight to what it's going to be like for a big night for Neil. He is a political bettor. He's one of the biggest political bettors in the UK. And this will be like this is like his Christmas. He's going to be sitting there at night trading this, looking at the different angles, trying to give you insight what it's going to be for him. Hopefully the American audience will be quite listening to this, quite interested in this. I'm fascinated still why, we're talking about the biggest betting event in the year and perhaps all time. And the Americans still cannot bet on this, which I find staggering. If you've got any comments on that, please put that in the comments box below, because to me, I find that amazing. But it's been very interesting. Like I say, I haven't really said much in this podcast because I'm learning and listening and learning. Nothing really for me to comment on because, you've got the great man here doing it all for us. So good luck. You're going to need it. So it'll be a long night. 3 nights without no sleep we're predicting here, Neil. I mean, what's your longest stretch without any sleep? What's the longest you've ever gone?
I did 4 nights no sleep while I was playing poker once. I popped out for showers every 3 or 4 hours just to stay awake, and I was playing in the hotel I was staying in, so I just kept going up to the room for a shower and coming back. But yeah,
we're going to shower tomorrow. You could miss a big move. You could Recency bias. You could be. It could be all happening in them shower moments as well. So it is going to be a fascinating couple of days. Obviously, it's a US presidential special. Next week, we'll be back with the normal dojo, talking about some topics in the sports betting world, giving you some insights to make you a better gambler as well. Remember, the content here is coming thick and fast. We have Betting Weekly live every day at 11 o'clock Eastern time, where one of the handicapping team will be joined by one of our presenters, giving you the best bets for that particular day and all the market movers from Bet Rivers. We may have Neil on at one stage talking about the general election over there, or the presidential election. And also we have some content as well from all the other guys coming here on the Betting Weekly Studios. Okay, that's been it for this week. It is a US presidential election special. May the best person win. Who will be crowned the 47th president of the United States of America? We'll know this time next week when you'll be back here on the Betting Weekly Dojo. Neil, thank you very much for your time as always. Great insights. Good luck with your nights betting action. And thanks for watching. Take care.